Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Code Beyond Talk. Today in this video, I'll be covering how to connect two databases in a Spring Boot project. So you can see in my slide where I have two databases and one Spring Boot project, and it is connecting with Spring Boot project. So in order to connect with Spring Boot project, what steps we need to take care, what configuration file we need to write, that I'll be discussing in this video fully. And in the end, I will be giving you the demo as well of the code, running code, so that you see that what steps I have explained, or what steps which I'm going to explain you in the theory, that I will show you in a demo as well. We know like connection of one database in Spring Boot project is easy, because we can just give the database configuration in a properties file, and connection happens in a single database. But when we talk about the multiple database or two database to connect with the Spring Boot project, we need to write some configuration file, and to write that configuration file we should follow few steps, and that steps I'll be discussing in this video. So watch the video till end, so that in the end you know how to connect with the multiple database. So the steps we'll be taking to connect multiple database is, we'll have to give that um, database properties in application.properties file, and we'll have to write that configuration class. So let's say I'm telling first database is a primary database and second database is a secondary database. So we'll have to write that configuration file for primary database and secondary database. And in configuration file we need to write the code for DataSource, EntityManagerFactory, and TransactionManager. So these are the mainly important steps that we need to write in a configuration file, and or we need to take these steps in order to make the connection with the multiple DB in a Spring Boot project. So I've already written the code, so I'll just explain the code line by line. If you don't understand the code, let me know in the comment section, so that I can resolve all the dots which you have. So let's move on to the code now. IntelliJ. So here I have Spring Boot project. So you can see in the left hand side the folder structure. So I have a model which has a user and product, and then I have a controller which has a user controller. Then we have a repository, we have a user repository and product repository. And then we have a config class, where we have a config class for primary database and secondary database. So this is the folder structures, and we have a pom.xml as well. So I'll explain each and everything, so that if you are very new to the Spring Boot project, so you should know like what all dependency we need to add in a pom.xml. So let me explain you the dependency which I have added in a pom.xml as well. So I have a dependency for data JPA, and I have a dependency for web, and then I'm using Postgres SQL, so it is Postgres SQL dependency, and then it is test dependency. So these are the dependencies that needs to be added as a part of when we are trying to create a Spring Boot project. So these are the important dependencies that you should be knowing, like what all dependency we are adding. And so we have four dependency basically: data JPA, starter web, Postgres SQL, and Spring Boot starter test. And so let's go to now model class. So I have a two model class. One is user. So if you go to the user model class, you see here I have a ID, name, email, and age. Then we have constructor getter and setter, and I am making this user class as an entity, so that we can map this Java Pojo classes with the database table, and the ID I'm making as a primary key. So I have annotated with the @ID annotation, and then to generate that primary key, this is generated value and sequence generator. And if you want to give that unique name to your column, you can use @column. So I'll be not explaining these things in detail, but I assume that you know these things, because the topic here is not to explain about the JPA and other things. Here I am focusing on how to connect with the two databases. So I will discuss more about the database. And so this is my one of the Pojo classes or entity class. Similarly, we have another Pojo class product. So let's go to the product, and here you see I have a ID, name and price in the product class, and this is also entity class, and ID is again here a primary key, and then we have a constructor and getter and setter. So these are the two Pojo classes. So I'll be saving user data in the primary DB and product data in the secondary DB. So here we have a two model classes or Java Pojo classes that will be persisting into different database. Then we'll have two repository as well. So here you can see in the repository folder, I have one user repository which is extending JPA repository, and then we have similarly product repository, which is extending again JPA repository. So two repository for two Pojo classes and two databases. And then I have a controller where I'll be writing that API. So when I give that demo, I'll be using this API to give you the demo to persist the data in the database. And now let's come to the main topic, where what configuration and what detail we need to do in order to connect with the two database. So first, as I said, right, we need to give that properties or a database related information like username or password in the properties file. So let's go to the application.properties, and here you see in the application.properties file I have two database configuration done. So if you see, this is one which is for primary database, and the below one which is for secondary database. So here you see I have given the details about the primary database. So I have only one database, Postgres, but I have created a 2 DB in that same database. But you can also create two database into different DB. Like one you can have MySQL, and other you can have PostgreSQL. But here, since I have only one database, so I have just created two database in one database only. So I have two database, user database and product database. So I'll be saving the user related data in user DB and product related data in product DB. So here you see I have given you the username, password and driver. So you see, since my database is same, so you will find that username and password are same, but you can see that database is different. And then these are the few other properties related to JPA, so that you can see the logs. So this is the two steps that we need to configure in application or properties file for the two database. And then let's move on to the main configuration file, where we need to configure few steps in order to connect with the multiple database. So I have two files, one for primary database, another is for secondary database. So let's move to the config file now. So here you see I have a config file for primary database, and so here you see what I have done. So first we need to make there are three steps that needs to be follow in the configuration file. One is like data source, second is as I have already explained in the slides, which is EntityManagerFactory, and then third is transaction manager. So data source, entity manager factory, and transaction manager, these three things needs to be done in a configuration file. I'll explain you each and everything. If you don't understand, let me know in the comment section as well. So here you see I have a class called primary dv config, and I'm annotating this class with @configuration, @enable transaction management, and @enable JPA repositories. And in the enable JPA repositories we have attribute called base packages, so you need to give that uh, packages address. So here you see, since we want to store the users related data in the primary database, so I have given that package for the users, and then entity managers factory ref, which is primary entity managers factory, and then transaction manager ref is primary transaction manager. So as I explained that, first we need to create the data source. So here you see this is creating the data source @configuration properties, and I'm giving prefix as Spring Data Source primary, and then you need to give the type and the build. So this will give you the bin for the data source, and that need to be passed in the primary entity manager. So here we have a primary entity manager. Here you see we are passing the data source, and we have this properties file, so that this is to just create that table in the database, because when you start your application, if the database is not created, it will create that database. So we have these properties, and that we are setting it in a builder. So data source we are setting, properties we are setting, and packages, so which package data will be stored in the primary DB, so we are giving that package here in the packages properties. And then persistent unit is primary, so we are giving it primary, and then build. So this will return you the object of local container entity manager factory bin. So this was the second step. First step was this creating data source, second is like entity manager factory, and then third is that transaction manager factory. Third is transaction manager. So we'll be passing this primary entity managers factory here, and it will return a new JPA transaction managers. So this is the three steps that we need to configure in a config file. And since we need to tell the database like which one is the primary and secondary, so we are annotating here with the primary annotation as well. So this was the configuration for the primary database. Similarly, we will have that configuration for the secondary database as well. So the steps which I have explained in the primary database, it's similar here as well. So only thing is that the value for all those steps will differ. Rest the process will be the same. So here we have a configuration file for the secondary DB config, and we are just annotating with same configuration, enable transaction management, enable JPA repositories. And here you see in the base packages we are passing that packages for the product. So the product, all those entity classes which are in the product packages will be stored in the secondary DB. So one thing we need to keep in mind is that we need to have a separate packages for each database. So let's say uh, since here we have a two database like primary and secondary, and we want to store all the user related data in the primary, and all the related product related data in the secondary DB. So the packages should be different. So all the classes which comes under the product has to be in the product package, and all the classes which are related to the user, and we want to store the data in the primary DB has to be in the user package. Similarly, so you can see in the folder structure as well, I have a separate package for user and separate package for product. So here you see in the model also I have a two package, one for product and one for user. Similarly, we in the repository also I have a user package for user repository and product package for product repository. So this needs to be followed. don't mix that classes in the same package, because we need to tell that in the configuration, like for which packages I want to store data in the database. So this needs to be kept in mind while you defining your entity classes. So where to keep which entity classes. So basically we'll keep that entity classes database wise. So all the entity classes for which we want to store the database in db1 will keep in the db1 package, and then db2 package. So this was all about the configuration needed in order to do that configuration. So I hope that I'm able to make you understand. If you don't understand, please let me know in the comment section. I can help you to understand by giving your query in the comment as well. So these were the steps, and now let's move on to the demo part or other things I'll tell you. So let me go to the database. So here is the two database which we have created. One is user database and one is product database. So let's go to the product database, and you see, let's go to the schema. So here you see in the table we don't have any table right now. Similarly, if you go to the user table, user database, here also you will not have any table as of now, because we have not created a table, and table will be created when we start our Spring Boot application. So if we run this, here you see it says that product does not exist. Similarly, if you run employee, here also it is saying that employee does not exist. Now go to the database. Now go to the project, and I will start the project. So you see that table will be created. So let me start that application, and you see application got started. Here it is saying that Tom got started on port 8080, and even you can see that log that it has created a two tables. So first table which got created is employee table, which has this id as email name, and second table which got created is product table. So now if you go to the database, you should be able to see that table got created. So if you run this command, you see there is nothing in the data, but we can see that table got created employee. Similarly, if you go to the product database and if you run this, you see we are getting that table got created, but since we have not added any data, we are getting no records here. So we are able to connect with both the database. Now we see that if we want to save some data, how we'll save that data in. So let me go to the API now. So I will go to the user controller. So here you see I have a two API. So first API is for adding that user data, and second API is for adding the product data. So here you see I am taking a user data in a request body, and then we have a user service. So if you go to the user service, we have another method called save. So let's go to the save, and here you see we have a user repository, and we are saving that data in a user database, because this user repository belongs to the user database. And similarly, if you go to another API which is product, so here we are taking product in a request body, and this is product repository. I have not created a service class for this because I just wanted to give the demo. So I just created a product repository here itself, and you see, so product repository is related to the product database, and we are saving product data in that. So now since my server is up, I'll just call this API and we'll see that user data is saved in the user database and product is saved in the product database. So let's go to the Postman now. So here you see I'm calling the add user API and we are passing this user data in uh, request body. Again I'll show you in the DB. Go to the user database and if you run this select star from user, we are not getting any records. Now I'll hit this API and here you see we got in response as well, and we should be able to see this data in the database now. So now if I run the same query, I should be able to see that one record here. So here you see we got this one record which we just saved it. So we are able to save the user data in user DB. Now let's go to the second API for product. Again I'll show you in the database. If you go to the product database and we run this query, there is no records. Now let me call this API. So I'll be calling this product API and we should be able to see one record in the database now. So let me execute this query and here you see we got this one record in the database. So even we are able to save the product data in product DB as well. So this is how we will make the connection with two database with the Spring Boot project. I hope that I was able to make you understand, and if you have any doubt related to any steps what I have explained in the video, please let me know in the comment section, and I hope that this will be helpful for them who are preparing for the interview, because this is most commonly asked question in the interview, like how do we connect with the multiple database in a Spring Boot project. So if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, give thumbs up, and don't forget to comment. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.